better informed about vaping and everything, as I say, quote unquote, within that cloud. Okay? You should learn something before you leave here. I spent the better half of the day looking through videos and reading things from the CDC, and it's pretty incredible the amount of information out there. But on the flip side of that coin, there's a lot of information that we don't know. And that's, for me, that's kind of the scary part, and I think many have the same concerns, is one of the phrases I heard today consistently was that, and we don't need comment now, we'll get into it, but vaping is 95% safer than smoking a cigarette. And if you think about that, just peel it by the first level is just, okay, 95%. Well, that's great. Awesome. The concerning part is that 5%. Okay, what about that 5% that's not safer? And what is in that? What is that composed of? So that was interesting to me. And then there's so many aspects of it, from the health side of it to where our kids are spending time and where they're spending money, and so we're going to get all into that. Now, a couple of ground rules before I introduce the panel. This is a respectful community, so this is not an attack on one side of the argument or the other, okay? I want everybody to be professional. Respect the panel members up here, respect their time, okay? And I will moderate if they go over the time. We've got a timekeeper, Ms. Lonnie, who will give you counsel if you stay over your time. And if I have to get involved, then we're really going to move down the line. Okay? And then the other thing is, I've kind of talked to all the panel members and said, let's make sure, and I give this counsel to everybody, is to stay within your lane. Speak from experience and speak from what you know and what is in your kuleana, but don't go outside of it, okay? Because that's, if you like, I can't speak to the medical part or the legal part. I can't even speak to the retail part. I've been in Black Lava Vape, and it made my head spin because there's so many different things up there. And to the respect to the retail side, these folks are trying to put food on the table. They're running a business. It's small business. So let's hear all sides of it. So without further ado, I want to bring up the panel members. The first one is Sean Anderson. He owns Black Lava Vape, and he has 2 shops. Okay. Next is Sally Anchetta, or Sally. Sally represents the Coalition for a Tobacco-Free Hawaii. Dr. Joanne Sarubi, she is our probably the senior most person in the emergency room, detached from North Hawaii Community Hospital. Danny Garcia is principal for Kohala Elementary. And we have Genesis. She is from Lopaka Smoke Shop, and I want to make a clarification. Lopaka Smoke Shop is across from Wakayama Liquor Store. Her husband isn't feeling well, so she's representing the smoke shop. And just a clarification, as I'm learning about this as we go, there's a difference, okay? There's a smoke shop, and then there's a vaping retail. So smoke shops clearly sell tobacco, okay? And they sell parts. But if you go into Black Lava Vape or any other vaping store that's electronic, and I'll disclose a little bit here, I smoke cigars, okay? So I went to Kona, and I Googled it, and I wanted to get a cigar for the evening, and I went into, I think, Black Lava Vape, and the guys looked at me and they go, dude, we are electronic only. Okay, so I moved on. So, but that's a clear distinction in terms of selling of tobacco versus vaping, and just make sure there is a difference, and I respect that. Okay, and finally, from our county prosecutor's office, the deputy prosecutor is Britt Bailey. And so what I want to do is, there's microphones on the table. We're going to starting with Sean. I want everybody gets about 3 minutes.
My name is Sean Anderson. I own Black Lava Vape. We just recently opened a location here in Waimea. A little bit about myself. I was a former smoker that would go to dipping and then back to smoking. Ultimately, it was tobacco, and I was able to stop with vaping in the mainland. I grew up here as a kid. I lived from kindergarten for 6 years, and I've always wanted to come back. So the opportunity, guys hear me better? Sorry. The opportunity for me to move back to the place that made me who I was as an adult, I saw the opportunity to come back, and I saw that there was no vape shops here. And in the mainland, I saw so many people get off tobacco. And that is our goal, is to help people stop tobacco. And we've been in business. It'll be 5 years. Our Kona store opened up. We were the very first vape shop on this island. And our goal is to help people get off of tobacco. And that's basically it. My employees, some of them are here. I employ 10 employees. All of my employees start at $12 an hour, which is well above minimum wage. We want to make sure that we take care of our guys. One of my general manager has 2 kids, and we want to make sure that we can support them. Part of our goal also is giving back to the community, and we've done that a lot in Kona, and we look forward to being able to do that here in Waimea. Thank you.
Mahalo. I'm Sally Anchetta. I am the Hawaii Island Coordinator for the Hawaii Public Health Institute. I'm used to speaking to children, so you guys are very well behaved. Thank you very much. You don't have to lay any ground rules. I am a public health educator. I'm the former American Lung Association Hawaii Island Coordinator, and I've been in public health for 16 years. I'm a trained tobacco cessation specialist. I used to help youth quit smoking as well as adults, and I now work for an agency that really looks at the bigger picture of health and policy change. What I want to share with you is just what I've seen by being a public health educator in the schools is in the last few years we added an ESD 101 to our tobacco 101 kind of presentations we would do in health classes. Really didn't speak a lot to middle schools because DARE took care of that, but in the last year we have been having requests that's increased by 200% by middle schools asking us to come and present. I can't do all the presentations, so we've actually trained facilitators from Hamakua Health Center just yesterday at West Hawaii Community Health Center, Bay Clinic, as well as the College of Pharmacy. We partnered with them to create an ESD prevention presentation. It's all fact-based, but it's very engaging for the youth. As you probably know, in 2013, we lobbied to raise the age of sale to tobacco use and e-cigarettes to 21. At that time, middle school rates were about 8%, maybe ever trying them. High school rates were 12.7. By the time we created our presentations, the high school rate went to 25%. In 2015, the middle school was up to about 18%. As of last year, in 2017, the high school rate is 34.1% are vaping, and it's at middle school is about 23%. And just to note that, thank you, these kids would have never tried cigarettes. They're enticed by the flavors and what vaping brings, you know, the fact of vaping. Also, middle schools that are reaching out to us are schools like Waimea schools, highly Christian. Schools that usually wouldn't have a problem with substance abuse or these kind of issues. And with that, we also have a youth council. It's a statewide council of high school students ages 14 to 18 years old. And they decided this year that their policy priority at the state level would be a school buffer zone, not to have tobacco or vape shops within. The original bill had 750 feet of their schools. It is now 500 feet. It's been amended. It's Senate Bill 2304. And the reason for that is we're inundated with just advertising when kids are going to school. A lot of the schools in my area of East Hawaii have vape shops really near their schools. And 87% of our Hawaii registered voters support this law. So we can talk more about it. I'll pass the mic on, but thank you for having us tonight.
Aloha, I'm Dr. Joanne Sarubi. I'm an emergency room physician at North Hawaii Hospital. I've been on the island for 20 years. I've been asked to comment from a medical standpoint, and also I'm vested because I have a 13-year-old son. So in reviewing the literature, it was interesting because they just came out, a major study was just done by the National Academy of Science, Medicine, and Engineering. Yeah, sorry. And that just came out in January 2018. And I actually learned a lot about e-cigarettes, which I never knew before. A couple of the facts that I learned was that the FDA only got regulation on e-cigarettes in 2016. And the other sad thing I found out was that big tobacco companies are now very involved in it. And they are developing devices. And their retail sales are projected to be $5.1 billion in 2018. So in reviewing these articles, I extrapolated some facts, pros and cons. Some of the pros I found were that e-cigarettes being used as a substitute for traditional smoking and aiding in smoking cessation, which is a very positive thing. It's found to be less harmful than drugs or tobacco, and it's less expensive. There's less carcinogens than cigarettes. The cons that I found were that the e-liquids, the vapors, can contain nicotine, which is addictive. And some of the devices now, you can get them to a higher voltage to heat the vapors, and that produces a much more concentrated nicotine effect and carbanols. And the one thing that is the unknown is the additives. There's colorings and there's chemicals that is used in the e-liquids, and these may be toxic. And there's things like formaldehyde and propyl glycol. The devices can explode and cause facial and inhalation burns. Drinking or injecting these liquids can be fatal, and it is children that are having these fatalities. There's been an increase in the number of calls to the poison control centers about e-liquids. We've had cases of nicotine poisoning being reported, agitation, rapid heart rate, and seizure. And microparticles are inhaled from the coils, nicotine, and solvents, which can lead to asthma-like symptoms in the chest. Right now, many states did not even have an age regulation. Now every state does have an age regulation from 19 up to 21, or 18 to 21. So looking at the studies right now, e-cigarettes are deemed less harmful than tobacco, but because of the variability from product to product, the overall health effects are not known. Sorry, I have to stop.
My name is Danny Garcia. I'm principal at Kohala Elementary School. I've been with the Department of Education since 2000. I was a teacher at Kealakea High School for 4 years. Then I was a vice principal at Kealakea High School for 6 years. Then I've been principal at Kohala Elementary School for the last 8 years. I also have 2 teenage daughters, 16 and 13, so this is very relevant. My wife is a teacher as well. So, but from the Department of Education's perspective, simply put, according to the Chapter 19 Hawaii Administrative Rules, which we fall under, any e-cigs, any tobacco and tobacco products, which e-cigs, vapes are considered, fall under. This is a Class A offense. There's 4 levels of offenses, A, B. A is legal, where we get the police involved. B is, we might not have to get the police involved. And C and D is more school level. So tobacco products like cigarettes and chewing tobacco are considered discretionary at the school level. And selling, distribution, possession could be considered more severe infractions. For instance, if it's found to have cannabis oil, then it could be a Class A offense and considered a drug paraphernalia. So for us, it's more black and white. There are, in public high schools, daily use. if you were to go across the state, thousands of kids using and possessing, selling. And as far as coming down to elementary school, myself, 3 years ago, I suspended 2 students who tried it in the bathroom, 5th graders. And for me, I immediately looked and I'm like, okay, Class C, but I knew I had the discretion. I needed to send a message out. I suspended the kids. Then I went on our morning broadcast and just had a very passionate discussion with the whole school about this. So it's down at the elementary school level as well.
Hi, my Genesis. Oh, my husband acquired Paco Smoke Shop. It's now Smoke Shop, and we offer tobacco and products, and we do have some of the vape accessories. Sorry, and we have juices, a lot of parts mostly. And we're very, with the vaping stuff, like everything, it is new that you learn, the pros and the cons, and it's just a young thing. It can be beneficial, mostly. Because of the lore, there's no all that extra excess, the carcinogens and all that. And we offer both sides, if they want the vaping devices, the juices, or we have just traditional. Yeah. Sorry. You guys want anything? Just come on in.
Hi, thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Britt Bailey. I'm the Deputy Prosecuting Attorney here in Waimea. I live in Waimea. I work in Waimea. What's that? Down here? Closer? Okay, got it. I'm the Deputy Prosecuting Attorney here in Waimea. I cover pretty much all the crimes that happen, whether it's traffic crimes, regular crimes, or family court crimes, including juvenile family court crimes, in the districts of Hamakua, South Kohala, and North Kohala. I'm also a parent of a middle schooler, so I have personal concerns about obviously any tobacco use, as well as the popularity of what I'm seeing is an increased popularity in e-cigarettes and vaping. From a legal perspective, and in my unique position here in this community, there's been a tremendous increase in the rise of kids that are being summoned to court for violating the statutes related to tobacco products, which now include electronic smoking devices. And this actually I started getting calls a couple of years ago from most of the principals at schools in Kohala and Honokaa, and even here in Waimea, saying, what do I do with all of these e-devices that are being collected in my desk drawer? And the community police officers were also coming to me and saying, what do we cite, what's the citation, what's the violation, and are there statutes? And yes, of course there are statutes, but it took a while for the statutes to catch up with these new devices and vaping. Now electronic smoking devices and any component of those are considered a tobacco product. Under 321-212 of Hawaii Revised Statutes, it's a crime for a child under 21 to possess in a public place, which includes schools and parks and most places where kids hang out. The other main statute that has also, where I've seen a lot of increases in these particular crimes, are those that are furnishing or selling these products to individuals under the age of 21. And that's under Hawaii Revised Statute 712, 1258, and it's a significant fine. And for those that work in this industry, I'm sure you all have looked at these penalties. It's the first time you come into court, it's a $500 fine if you're found guilty, and there's not really much leverage with the statutory penalties. So I think my main concern is the significant rise that I've continued to see in the amount of juveniles that are coming into court with these citations. They're then in the court system. I think it's a product that is, the way it's being marketed to is very attractive to juveniles. I also have personal concerns about the location of these businesses near schools. And with that, I'll stop.
All right, thank you everybody for that good information. I want to kind of open things up. We're going to go straight to Q&A, but some of the things that came up I want some panelists to discuss, and I'd like to start with Sean. If you could talk about, we talked about the levels of nicotine and how that can be adjusted, and just more for an education standpoint, talk to us about that. How are the kids getting the ESDs? How are they getting the vape juice? If you have to be 21, how are you getting cigarettes? Because essentially, in my mind, this is no different than a cigarette. You got to be 21 to buy a pack of cigarettes, which they sell at the Shell store, and they sell alcohol, okay, in the same proximity of Black Lava Vape. So talk about the enforcement in terms of who comes in your shop and the levels.
Thanks. Thank you. First point that to talk to the first point about the nicotine. Out of all of the juices that we sell they don't come in pre-filled cartridges, which means we know exactly what is in the juice. Okay, I would say out of the people that buy juice that has nicotine in it, I would say 85 to 90% buy a 0.3 milligram of nicotine. Just to give you an idea, a Marlboro Ultra Light, which is pretty much as low as you can go, is 0.7 milligrams. So it's already less. Okay, so the nicotine intake is it's different than tobacco. Okay, and another thing, and this is probably the biggest misconception of vaping. There is no tobacco in vaping. None. So that is something that we've been, for 5 years, people still think that there's tobacco in vaping, and there's none. As far as the point for how kids possibly are getting them,
sure.
We card every person that walks in. Actually, when Mike told me the story about going in to get the cigar, you said they carded you?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
I said, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? I appreciate that.
We have no intention, and we will work with the community at every level, with you guys. We don't want to see this. It makes us and our business look bad. We are not big tobacco. Vaping is about 95% of all the vape that you see comes from small local business. Big tobacco, they're trying to get into it because they've lost so much money because of people that stopped smoking and went to vaping. That's why they're jumping on the bandwagon.
Let me give you a follow-up question.
Yes.
How is nicotine put in the vape juice? Where does the nicotine come from?
It comes from the manufacturer. We order, and here's another, I would say 20% of the juice that we do sell is 0 milligrams of nicotine. There is no nicotine in it. It's vegetable glycerin, which you can buy at Island Naturals, natural flavors, and propylene glycol. That's the ingredients in the juice that is sold in Maine, that comes in bottles. The reason we don't sell pre-filled cartridges, we don't know what's in there. Sorry, I'm sorry.
So nicotine comes from where?
Yes, yeah, when we buy juice, I will buy 0 milligram, 3 milligram, and 6 milligram. That's it. People come in, like I said, 90%, 85, 90, they just want that 3 milligram. And then there are people that want a higher dosage. There are little, look at it like as a Visine, a miniature Visine that you can buy now. You can add to bump up if you want, say, a 12 milligram, which would be more like a Marlboro, regular Marlboro Light kind of thing. But it comes from the manufacturer that way, pre-bottled.
Okay. The other thing I'd like to, it's just not nicotine. I mean, you can get vape juice that has 0 nicotine. You can go up to, what you said, 6 milligrams, but let's transition. What else can you do with that e-cigarette? Dabs, okay?
You cannot do dabs with electronic cigarettes.
Okay.
You cannot.
So explain what
sorry,
dabs are.
A dab is a concentrated form of marijuana. You cannot put any really dab or marijuana into an electronic cigarette. They make electronic devices that you cannot add e-juice to, but you can use for marijuana and wax or dabs. But your standard e-cigarette, it's not made to do that.
Can I answer about the kids?
Go ahead.
Kids like to tell you where they get their e-cigarettes, and I make it a really safe space when I talk to them. I talked to 900 kids this past fall, and most of them were in middle school, and I always ask them a question when we get to the rates, and so I ask them, do any of you know somebody who is vaping, or have you ever tried an e-cigarette? Because they don't like to tell you they've tried it. High school students will tell you right away. They're really proud. But a middle school student's still kind of ashamed. But they're telling us, and it depends on the school district, it depends on the complex. So some complexes will tell us the parents are buying it for us. And yeah, and those are the parents that get really upset when the e-cigarette's taken away, because they want to come back and say, well, let me have that back. And I've even heard stories from one of the middle schools that I taught at, from the teacher who asked me to speak, is that then the vice principal, well, I don't know if they felt comfortable, but the parent insisted they get it back, and they handed it right back to the kid. And so I told the educator, it's like if they confiscated alcohol, would they give the alcohol back to the parent so they could give it to the child? Because it's the same kind of age limit. And then other schools has older brothers and sisters, older cousins, and they get one and they share it. Kids get Visa cards as gift cards, so they're ordering it online. And I have a lot of stories I could share about from neighbor islands of children pre-selling them and using a parent's card to order like 300 and have it delivered next door. Fortunately, the parent was a police officer, found out from the credit card company that they were using his card. But there's a lot, their kids are inventive. And there's a lot of schools that you'll find some kids selling them on campus, and they have a little market going.
So that's two great points. You said, please bring it up into discussion about the mail order business, because you can check the box that says you're 18 or over, and then it comes in. And so I pretty familiar with that part.
And lastly, I do appreciate our vape owners, because we do every summer do like a community assessment, and I call all of them and I tell them who I am, and I ask them, do you need signage? There was one in Hilo area that the kids were telling me that's where we're buying at. I didn't call the police and say, hey, go do a sting. When I talked to them on the phone, I said, this is what the kids at this school are telling me. And she was shocked. And I said, I know you're a good neighbor and you don't want to sell to underage kids. So I'm just letting you know they're telling their friends they can buy at your store.
Here's the question. How old do you have to have a P.O. box? 18? I don't know. But if you got a P.O. box, you're in business. Okay? And then the last thing, I promise, question and answer now. In setting up the AV, I was talking to Sean, and we were just talking. In fact, he before the meeting, told me, I said, well, if you're under 20, how are they getting it? Parents are taking their kids into his shop to get their stuff. And so as we discuss this topic, I've been thinking about this a lot. It's like, okay, on one side of the spectrum, where's the parental part? And on the right side, where's the retail and the kids and the responsibility of decision making and that sort of stuff. So let's open it up to questions. Let's get at this. You can come up or just be loud. Jan.
That's a great question. When we first opened, we were having just people walking by, walking in, and we ask them their ID. If they're not of 21, we ask them to leave. We're not trying to be rude, but at the same time, there's no reason for them to be in there. Sorry, repeat. Say, well, yeah. So to answer your question, we have people that can come in that are full adults, and they'll spend a lot of money on a whole setup and they'll get some extra stuff. But I wouldn't say that we have customers that come in that are buying, like, I want six devices, you just need one device, right? They come in, they buy one, they may buy a bottle of juice, so nothing excessive. And if a group of kids do come in and there's one that looks like they're 21, we'll ask the others to wait outside. But parents do come in with their kids to buy vape, not for their kids. You know what I mean? And we don't mind. We have a chalkboard. We have a very well ventilated area. We have a TV with kids programming. If they want, you know what I mean, as the parents are in there, just to get them in and out, you know what I mean, quickly. But parents, they do come in and buy for their high schoolers.
It's not really possible to track how much a person goes through because they can go through it quickly by just like constantly taking hits or, drags, or it can last them a very long time. So there's not really any way to track it.
But
especially
Jen,
if they live far away.
Yeah, where you getting at tracking? If somebody comes in and buys 6 bottles of vape juice, comes back next week, gets 6 more.
That's a red flag.
They're sort of the middleman distributor. Yeah. In the back.
There are, I actually brought something. Nicotine is naturally occurring in a lot of vegetables, eggplant, tomatoes. There's quite a bit that nicotine naturally reoccurs. Teas, peppers, and capsaicin, cauliflower, there's a lot.
But I think that the point is we're not inhaling those things. Our digestive system and our respiratory system are much different, and they can break it down much easier. I mean, I know, and I've done a lot of research, because we wouldn't advocate for something if it wasn't valid. And that our respiratory system, and I do share real lungs with all the kids. We actually have lungs that they touch so they can see the sensitivity, and it's different. And we just want to always make that clear.
Yes, sir.
Actually, the medical professional might be able to answer a little bit better about the nicotine, but the research that I've done, and a lot of research that has been coming out, is showing that nicotine by itself is not actually doing really much harm, any harm. It's going to turn out to kill you like smoking will. As far as the 0 milligram nicotine, every juice that we have is high levels of vegetable glycerin, which again is a natural. You can buy it at Island Naturals. When you heat that up to a certain point, it turns into water vapor. That is the byproduct, and that's why it's called vaping. The flavoring back maybe a few years ago, not really sure. But the vaping industry, the whole community of vaping, the goal is a healthier alternative, something that is not going to be as harmful as smoking. So their goal is to find things that are natural and going to be less harmful.
What do we know about the effects of vaping?
Right. So at this point, because it's a water vapor, the concern, of course, is nicotine because it is addictive. But it's the chemicals that are put in to the other substances, the flavorings, the food colorings, that we know nothing about because these are not supposed to be inhaled. Most of them are usually ingested. And some of the chemicals that they're using, like formaldehyde and propylene glycol, are, propylene glycol has, it's an irritant, and it irritates your eyes and your lungs. And it actually, on its precautionary, it says it's not to be inhaled. So again, we're in the early stages of e-cigarettes. We haven't done a lot of research. They're still doing lots and lots of research going on. And like with cigarettes, initially we thought they were very safe. and then found out, unfortunately, too late, how unsafe they were, is the same type of thing that potentially could be happening with e-cigarettes. So this is what the medical concern is.
And just one real fast, what we tell the kids, because we have our presentation completely vetted through the College of Pharmacy. And not only the PharmD students did the research, but then their professors. And they're the ones that actually advocated to do this prevention presentation in the middle schools. One of the chemicals, and it's not in everyone, and it might not be in Sean's because he mixes his own, but it was a Harvard study in 2015 that had, out of 51 different e-juices, 47 had high levels of diacetyl. Diacetyl is a chemical that can cause popcorn lung, which is the obliteration of your lungs. And you know, we don't say that if you vape, you're gonna get popcorn lung. It's just a potential. And like Doctor said, we don't know the longevity studies. I feel this generation is our case study. And that's really what we're looking at with some of the additives.
Real quick, there's no formaldehyde in any bottled juice that you buy in a vape shop. There is none, period. And I implore you guys to do your own research. Diacetyl is actually a sweetener. I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of xylitol. They put it in gum. It's a form, it's just a sweetener. And there was a lot of juice companies, actually not a lot, there's about 20% of juice companies that was using diacetyl to sweeten their juice. The whole popcorn lung thing came out. Most people that were using it just went away from it because there's other sweeteners that are actually better. And about 6 months ago, and I can actually probably get my hands on this, there was another study that came out about the diacetyl and the popcorn lung and found that the study wasn't actually done in a correct manner. I'm not sure exactly what it was. But I've never heard of a case of popcorn lung ever on the lung, on the news or anything, and I really doubt that any of you guys have either.
Going back to the educational piece, because I know we have some educators in here and some leadership. Talk about consequences and talk about the parental piece. Student, 5th grader, has a ESD found, suspended. What are the parents doing? What's your experience in saying, like, when you confront the parents, what's the background? What are your thoughts on that? And then we'll go to your question.
In that one situation that I've had, this one student brought it. It was his father's. When I contacted Dad was clearly embarrassed and ashamed. And so fortunately, that was a situation that kind of, and like I said, I used it as a teaching tool for my entire school. And, it's so far I haven't found or heard of any other situation. But, in the schools, I look at it as it's symptoms of whatever goes on. It's not the root cause. Behaviors come into the schools. And so for us to kind of do our own research, look at the incidents, what kind of incidents we have. I did work 10 years at Kealakea High School. I left in 2009, and this didn't even hit, until later. It just exploded. So as far as just, I still have colleagues working there, and of course, my colleague at Kohala High School, which they have, I believe, at the Kohala High School and middle school, they both told me that it's there. There's incidents. The high school said she had 5 confiscations, but she knows the kids just hide it. The middle school, there's been multiple confiscations. Again, just they're hard to find, and unless kids are really irresponsible with it, or people are going to rat them out. But it's, all school zones are tobacco free, and we consider it a tobacco product. That's what's given to us, the direction it's given to us. And so it's education, awareness. We have DARE come to our 5th graders and talk about, their curriculum does include e-cigs and vapes. And so it's just working with the parents, getting the awareness to them and education to our students.
All right, thank you. Ma'am.
Now, if I were to buy alcohol and drink it, that's my problem. if I were to buy alcohol and give it to my grandkids, to me, that is child abuse.
That's your problem too.
How does that apply? Yeah, how does that apply? It seems like it would be the same thing if the parent is buying it to give to the kids. Not that the kids are stealing it, but I mean, and I never heard that we had, you know, it's a $500 first court appearance on fine. That ought to be played out there.
Right, and most of those.
Want to repeat the question?
So the question was, if I can summarize, why is it that a parent can go into a shop and purchase an anything, vaping, smoking device, and furnish that to a child? Why is that okay? And where the state gets involved, it's where the child under the age of 21 is consuming this product, possessing the product in a public place, which includes schools and parks and other places. Most of the citations that we're seeing related to the statute where I mentioned that you can't sell or furnish are coming from the retail shops themselves. And again, it goes back to a tracking mechanism. It's very difficult for the state or anyone else to recognize whether or not an adult going in to a shop is then taking that product home and giving it to their child. So.
But I'm also, like, if a child comes in and says, well, my parent gave it to me, or if the parent comes in and says, I want it back, and
right.
Yeah, it's my child, I have the right to give it to them. To me, that's where the state can also come in as
Correct.
Child abuse.
Difficult, but possible, I suppose. Child abuse, as we know, child abuse is a hard statute to enforce. We do it, but I mean, certainly it's a custodial issue as well if you're providing that stuff. But there are exceptions for parental authorization, and I think Danny, you probably are aware of this, where the parent will come in and they want their device back, and they've given permission to their child to have that particular device.
Let me go back here and then I'll get you.
That is no longer cool to smoke. I mean, we have a real culture of not smoking. But I'm curious, it's now becoming cool for these kids to have the e-cigs. Are we seeing any transition from the juice or whatever it is into more substance like nicotine? Is there anything to notice that that's going to happen?
So in the study that was just published in 2018 in January, that was one of the potential harmful effects is that vaping can be considered to be addicting, and it can lead on to for other things such as smoking. And if there's as cannabis involved or cannabis used with the vaping can be lead into drug use. So yes, that was pointed out in the study. That was one of the potential harmful effects.
Potential.
Just to clarify the previous question, there is a parental authorization exception in terms of the furnishing of a product. And the other exception is if you're a minor and you're participating in a controlled tobacco program where you're actually going in as a decoy. So those are the two exceptions. So it's statutory at this point. You can change it.
The thing is that if there is a law within this state that states that a child under the age, or that a person under the age of 21 cannot smoke and cannot vape, if that is a law, then the parents giving their children the vaping products are encouraging their children to break the law.
So in other words, parents facilitating VSDs, cigarettes, anything that's illegal with their minor children is your statement is that they're encouraging them, they're reinforcing that they can break the law.
And if I just can add something.
Go ahead, Sean.
The majority of parents that will come in are purchasing it for their grown adult who's 18. I'm not trying to, I'm not agreeing with it or disagreeing with it. But there is a very big difference to selling to somebody who is a minor and then selling somebody who's 18. This person that's 18 can travel to pretty much anywhere else in the United States and purchase something at the age of 18 as an adult. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with it. But I'm saying, we don't get a lot of people that are bringing in their children, and, you know, that just doesn't happen. But, you know.
In the back, go ahead.
He tends to come back and always say, well, it's organic. It's like,
No, most shops are going to be selling the same pre-bottled juice that comes from reputable companies that have been around for 7+ years. Anytime you inhale anything that's not oxygen, it's probably not going to be good for you. Okay, and that's to the point that you said. It's what the Public Health England, that's our equivalent to our FDA. They don't say that it's 95% healthier. Really, what they're saying is it's 95% less harmful. Okay, anytime anything, you guys, I mean, a hamburger, it's not great for you, right? So no, I mean, I would never say that vaping is good for you, because it's not. But what it comes down to is, if you smoke cigarettes or if you use tobacco, you will die, because you are inhaling smoke and all kinds of chemicals. With vaping, you are inhaling, well, with new vaping technologies, with stuff like that, you are inhaling, like I said, vegetable glycerin, propylene glycol. We don't add food coloring, and possibly nicotine. I've never heard
better
of it.
Juices for you,
Yeah,
like
I've
organic from the farm.
I've never heard of it. Yeah,
That's what I'm
there
looking
could
for.
be. We don't carry it. Yeah, no.
Okay, let's go, ma'am in the back. That's you. Okay, so let me, before you answer that, here's the dilemma I have. I understand the proximity, and when Black Lava Vape came up, I looked and I said, what the heck? Okay, right across the street are cigarettes and alcohol. Same, 21.
And
just
vape.
and if I want to buy Juul pods are these things that look like a USB mouse attachment, and they go on top of a thing about this big, and you just put it there. That red part is the Juul pod, and it's got pre-packaged juice in it. You can buy that at Shell. Okay, so in terms of let's talk about the proximity. I mean, but they sell cigarettes as well at Shell. So I mean, this is kind of a.
Cigarettes and Juul pods at Shell, so close to an elementary school.
The only reason Hawaii Public Health Institute took this on as a priority policy for 2018 legislative session was because the kids came to us and said, we need this. And these are kids from really disparate populations across our state. Most of the research on Oahu, where there's the lower income, you have more shops right by their schools. Higher income neighborhoods have like 15 shops when you look at the zip code. Lower income zip codes, 74 shops. So it's just like one after another as you go down. So we want good neighbors. I don't want to put Sean out of business at all. It's just that it's close to school, and they see the advertising, and I have to say, 9 out of 10 in middle schools, they love the flavors. It's all about the flavors and the packaging of the flavors, and it's very attractive.
We don't advertise in our shop. You can't, if you drive by, we don't have signs that say come in and get this and come in and get that. Again, our goal is absolutely to not do anything that involves any type of children. And real quick, our intention was, we didn't realize until about 2 months before we were going to open, and we were getting our permits, that somebody had brought up the proximity. We had no clue. Didn't even cross our minds. So, but because when we found out more about it, and they had mentioned, well, you know, there's the Shell that does sell vape, you know, all of that stuff, we felt it was okay. Now, having said that, when our lease is up, we do plan on going to an area that's got better parking and stuff. We were just trying to get into the community because we had 10 customers a week come from Waimea to Black Tacona, and they go, why don't you open something closer? So, you know, that's kind of how it happened, but it wasn't intentional.
It is absolutely astonishing, the science behind vaping, dabs, how you do it, and what you do. And it clearly don't have enough time, but Anybody on the panel, go ahead.
Well, we have a researcher on our team, and he is phenomenal. There is so many new products out there. We can't keep up with them. And one of the things when we educate kids is we don't feature all the latest products because we don't want to promote the behavior of vaping. But just a few years ago, one of my best friends is an educator at Hilo High, and she would see somebody with this big fat thing and take it, inhalation, and she'd stand next to him and like, you gotta exhale, and he didn't want to, because he knew that he would lose his device and stuff. And now these little jewels, like you said, there's not the big fat cloud, it looks like a little jump drive. But the thing is, and I'm sure Sean knows about this, the kids know about this stuff before we ever do, and what they can do and what their potential is. So the market out there is so fast.
Do you sell Google Box? We do sell Google Box, yeah. We do. But actually, after hearing a lot about what's going on, we may not. And we only brought Juul Pods into our Kona store about 6 months ago, or maybe it was a little bit longer. It was before we opened up in here because we had so many people asking for it. The reason we never sold Juul Pods before is because it comes pre-filled. We don't know what's in there. We've never sold a pre-filled cartridge or anything based on that. We don't have any quality control. I can't, don't know what I'm giving this person. But that's something I think we could definitely start working at. Yeah.
Sean, a couple follow-up questions. Hardware, smoking devices, where are they made? Produced, manufactured?
Most are going to be made in China, but
okay.
there are a huge growing number of U.S.-made products that are coming out. Vaping technology changes like computers.
If you had 10 devices, how many were made overseas?
7.
Okay.
I just want to tag on to the THC in cannabis. There is cannabis oil, there is THC oil. It can go into those vaping products. It's very hard to detect, and it's very hard to smell. And do they go hand in hand? Often, yes.
Go ahead.
It's currently moving through the state legislature, so that seems like a pretty obvious way for people in the community who are concerned to take up the issue in a meaningful way. And
Could you make an argument to say, okay, fine, they'll move if it's at 500 feet now and it goes to 750, and just hypothetically, they move to that corner gas station and they meet the regulation.
well, I mean, there's nothing we can do about that.
Right,
What
and
we can do is try to advocate for the legislation that we as citizens, or I as a citizen, feel is relevant to dealing with this problem.
Sure.
To me seems-
Is moving the shop to a different part of Waimea going to?
It's better for me if it's closer to a liquor store out of town than if it's around the corner from 3 of our schools.
And Senate Bill 2304, Draft 1, Senate Draft 1 is moving. And actually over there in the plastic holder is a blue flyer. And you can take it, it's so easy to write your one sentence, you don't even have to write testimony, and send it to your state legislature and just let them know how you feel about this. Like I said, this is part of the Keiki caucus as well. So Senator Rhodes thought this was an important bill to advocate for. And this is something that our youth had asked us to bring forward. And we have 10 youth just from the Big Island. And some of them live in really, really hard situations. And they thought this was important.
So in preparing for tonight, I looked at the way that this issue is being handled across the country. And some of what I believed were the best laws in relation to vaping shops or lounges near schools had 1,000-foot distance from schools and then 500 feet distance between retail shops, so that you can't have a group of retail shops in an area, because there's also a problem with that. I mean, I'm going to step out of my lane a little bit here and just say I read a study, I think it's pretty a valid study, that there's an increase in vaping, tobacco use, any of these things when you cluster these shops together in an area. So if you can keep them separated by distance and then also increase the distance from schools, it really decreases the attractiveness of these products. And there's also a lot of laws where it's just zoned outside of city limits.
Most people realize the fact that you track, so I quit and have any studies been done yet as to how it affects the health of these kids as their lack of ability to continue doing something?
So in the question was, does vaping cause the lack of ability or any medical effects as the children can do sports? The one thing that they did find was that the possible metallic fragments and byproducts of the chemicals cause an asthma-like syndrome in children or in people who vape. It doesn't necessarily have to be children. So reactive airway disease or asthma, which would restrict their activity. So that, from that point of view, yes. And again, there's going to be more ongoing studies, and we're going to be having a lot more information about this. Right now, this is all very new to the medical community, and this is one of this report in 2018 was only one of the first big ones that were ever done. So I'm sure there'll be more information.
There's been smaller studies done. I think they took this flavor off the market. There was a banana cream pie flavor. They created with the control group the ability to not be able to cough. They lost the cough reflex. So there was a couple flavors I think they stopped producing because of what those particular studies were doing. So they weren't longitudinal studies, like real broad studies, but there were small pockets of different health effects that affected certain types of flavoring.
Okay, we got about time for two more questions. Sir, and then I'll go to...
I totally respect the fact that they are operating within the law. It's on us to change those laws and to protect ourselves. Tobacco was once characterized as a nicotine delivery device, cigarettes. It's the tobacco that'll kill you. The nicotine will addict you. Similar concerns with this phenomenon, as the technology and the marketing around that new technology is very sophisticatedly applied to getting the kids hooked. That's my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Sean.
Okay, yeah.
Sean, how much would this thing cost?
Okay, they would start from very basic, I would say 25 up to, I mean, really, they go up really high, like 500. Anywhere from 15 to 20, $30 for a 30 mil, or a 30 mil would be the equivalent of about depending on what device you're using it could be 1 to 2 cartons of what you would smoke out of, for cigarettes. So, yeah.
Okay, we're at our time limit, so I want to kind of close this out. If there's a couple things we didn't even talk about. We didn't even talk about taxing vape. Okay, but it's not taxed right now, correct? Okay, other states have taxed it, so it's a source of revenue. So I appreciate all the panelists' time and effort, and the audience maintaining good composure. Thanks, great discussion. I'll leave you with the...
I left some, everybody has studies on each side. I left also some information if you guys want to pick up. There was a study that was just released in February of 2018. So.
Okay, so yeah, lots of information up here. Thank you, great questions. And if you have not seen the vaping equipment, we got a demonstration table up here of some of this equipment. Thank you.